everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Refine and Shine podcast. I'm super excited about my guest and for you all to get to know him. My guest today is Jim Serrano. He is an adoptee, a survivor, a husband, a father, an advocate, and a storyteller. Jim's journey of grief, reunion, faith, and self discovery has taken him from the depths of childhood adversity to the light of purpose. And I know that his insights will speak to anyone navigating identity, belonging, or transformation. Thank you, Jim, for being my guest today.
Well, thank you. This is a great opportunity, and I appreciate you.
I appreciate one that you are sharing so much, and I think that that's so important because so many times, and I find also with males particularly, they don't like to share their story. They think that if they share their story or their pain or all the things that they are, I mean, like you always hear it like man up or do this or whatever it is, and it's really hard for men to open up. And so, I just want to say thank you for saying yes to this opportunity to share your story because I think when you share your story, you bring light to others and help others see that whatever they've been going through, maybe they're not alone. So just tell us a little bit about your journey.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to go real quick because it's a kind of a long journey. Okay, I was born in January 22nd, 1962, in San Jose, California, and the day I was born, I was given up for adoption at birth. Like I said, I was born in San Jose, and I was adopted at 6 months of age to my parents that raised me, Joe and Lupe, and they lived here in Gilroy, California. And so they adopted me at 6 months of age. I came to Gilroy and grew up here in Gilroy and went through the old school system and this and that. And um, but they had three children of their own already when they adopted me. I had two older sisters and a brother, but they were a lot older than me. Matter of fact, I think one of my sisters, Susie, I think she's going to just turn 80, and I'm going to be
Mm.
64 in this January. 3 more months, I'll be 64. So, so they had three kids of their own already. Plus, they adopted another girl with me, my
Mm.
sister Barbara, but she wasn't. We're not blood related. She was from somebody else. So they adopted both of us, and like I said, I was adopted at 6 months of age, raised in Gilroy, California. Went through the school system, and through my years of being adopted, there was trials in my life. First of all, kind of like not knowing who I was, because there's one thing with me. See, uh, I asked my sister this question when I started doing these podcast interviews. I goes, "Why didn't my parents, why didn't mom and dad ever sit me down and tell me that I was adopted?" Because see, they never
Oh,
sat me down to tell me. They told my sister. I know that because my sister told me they told him. And I asked my sister Susie. I goes, "Why didn't they ever sit me down?" And she goes, "I don't know, Jim. I don't know." I said, "Okay." So I kind of figured it out because through my childhood years, it was a joke, always a joke with them, and they always used to say, "Oh, we got you at the supermarket." No, they got me at Kmart. Kmart was a
uh,
big. Remember Kmart before
yeah, I remember
Target and all
Kmart.
that? Yeah. So, so they used to say, "Oh, you got you at Kmart," because Kmart was only like about 3 blocks away from where I was raised, where I grew up. So I said, well, "Okay, whatever." And they always telling me that. But then I started looking, and I got a little older, and I'm thinking, okay, well, I goes, I don't really look like them, too much. I didn't really look like my mom or my dad, and so I kind of figured it out myself that I was
Mm.
adopted. But it was like there were two. I really don't know because they've been gone. My mom's been gone for 25 years, and my dad's been gone for probably about 12 years now. But I think it was just more they were just uncomfortable with it of sitting me down to explain because this happened in 1962, and things were a lot different back then. Everybody kept everything secret, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything's a secret, and I'll tell you why in this story. So, but then I asked my sister, so why didn't they? Goes, I don't know. But then she brought up something. She brought up. She goes, but there's one thing about you, Jim. I goes, yeah, what you changed. in your like your preteens, around teenager years, you kind of change. You got more of a like a rebel type. Your whole attitude kind of changed, right? And well, uh, I admitted this to my daughter and my wife when I was 52 years old. We were on the way to go get an ice cream at Baskin Robbins, and this my wife is a school teacher, so she used to uh, really um, care about kids. She just retired. She was a school teacher for 25 years, and there was something that came on the radio. It was about child sexual abuse, and right there, that kind of hit because what my sister told me when I asked her that question, and she kind of mentioned that I had changed. But see, she didn't know that I was sexually abused from the ages of 9 to 11 by a male cousin that was a lot older than me, and so I kept that a secret. I kept that shame with me till I was 52 years old. Like I said, I'm going to be 64, and this happened when I was between the ages of 9 to 11. And so that night, I told my daughter and my wife that I was sexually abused as a child, and they were shocked. My wife was shocked, and that that happened to me because it's not something a guy's going to want to say. Especially
Right.
a male, right? And that go. I was raised in the Chicano culture. You got to be macho. You can't be. You're not going to mention any of that crap. And I didn't have a relationship with my dad that I could go and tell him what happened to me, what was happening to me at that age. I
Mhm.
was like, as an adoptee, the story is always we're always trying to get home because we always want to know who we are, but we're still alone. So I was alone all through my childhood because I didn't get the hugs, I didn't get the "I love you" and all that stuff, right? But some
Mhm.
people say, "Oh, that's the Chicano culture or whatever," or that's the way the culture was back then. That's not how they were taught love, And but sometimes I always say, that's kind of like a cop out. I always think love is love, and if, why did you raise me? Why did you adopt me? And that's another question I asked my sister. Why do you think they adopted me? You think Dad resented me because he didn't. Maybe he just didn't get that as a child, so he didn't know how to react to me or
Mhm.
treat me that way. And they had a son. His name was Georgie, and their son was like 2 years old, and he got sick and he passed away.
Oh.
And I heard from my sister that my mom was having a nervous breakdown. So I think the reason why they adopted us, and he had to adopt a boy because maybe they were replacing Georgie, the little boy that they lost. So, and my sister agreed with me. And I go, "You think Dad resented me because I was replacing Georgie?" And she didn't disagree with me. She didn't disagree with me. But in my mind, I'm thinking, the older you get, you think about things like that, right? So, so that I was dealing with that, dealing with the molestation as a kid, and that drove me to start drinking when I was about 11 years old. I started drinking,
You were
and
numbing the pain.
yes, yes, I was numbing the pain. I always tell people, "Goes, why did I drink for so many years?" Well, because I was numbing reality. I was numbing the past because this January is my 64th birthday, and I'm celebrating 26 years of sobriety. Because my last drink, I haven't even on my phone. I have a picture of me of myself when I was 38 years old with my last beer in my hand because it was from a surprise party that my biological mother threw me. That's the
Oh.
last picture I had that beer in my hand, and I'm going to tell you why that was my last picture or last beer. So, so I was growing up, and um, me and my wife got married when we were 21, 22, and there's one thing that I never. My wife kind of was shocked because everything that happened to me, the molestation, was right across the street from where she grew up at.
Mhm.
So for all those years, those 2 years before I was dating her, every year every time I would go pick her up, I would have to look across the street at that house where
Mhm.
everything happened. And she was kind of shocked with that because she used to ask me, "Well, what did you think? How did you feel?" I goes, "Well, I could tell you exactly what happened 50 something years ago, like it happened yesterday. I still have it in my mind. Is there going to be ever any healing? I don't know. Uh, Telling my story does bring healing to my soul. I'm even writing my book right now because of a therapist that I met at an adoptee conference beginning of the year. She said, "You should write your book, Jim." So I started writing it in February. So I'm about three-quarters of the way done now. So, but it's calming my soul by writing my story on my book because I'm remembering stuff, but I'm actually having more compassion and thinking about other people's feelings with my story. So that's the good thing about it. But a lot of stuff is coming back to me now. But so after I grew up and we got married and stuff like that, I say, and we had our daughter Elizabeth. And my daughter Elizabeth's 39 now, and so I think it was about the ages of 36. I was looking at a program on TV. I think it was Oprah. It was one of the talk shows, and they were talking about people trying to find their biological parents and how to do it, right? So they talked about you could because in California adoption records are closed. You can't get your birth certificate, so you'll never know who you are, right? So, but you get non-identity information. So non-identity information is you go. So I decided that date it's time, and then my wife says, "You sure?" Yeah, it's time. But the hardest part about that, I had to go to my parents and tell them I'm going to go look for my biological family, and they have to give me my adoption papers that they had or whatever they had, right? So that's the hardest part. Of course, my dad was, "Are you sure you're ready to find out what's out there?" Because I have to, Dad. But he used to tell me all the time, "But you're Serrano." Dad, I'm not. I have to find out who I am. Of course, my mom was upset. All through my search for them, my biological family, my parents never asked me anything about the search because they didn't want to know anything about it. So they gave me the paperwork, and I used to drive a concrete ready mix truck in San Jose for 30 years. So this is going to be a big part of the story. So I did that for 30 years. I retired in 2012, right? And I started young. I started when I was 20 there at the company. And so about 2 blocks from where I worked at, there was on Heading Street, there was the county records department. So I went there and all the papers I had with me that my parents gave me, I went up to I always still remember like the sixth floor. I asked the lady, "Hey, I'm here for my non-identity information. I'm adopted." He goes, "Okay, well, fill out this form and put all the information you got there, and we might have a information for you in about 6 months." So okay, we still live in Los Baños, a town probably an hour from where I live now. Okay, and so I got there. I mean, I sent them the information. I said, "Okay, I'm waiting and waiting." I said, "Okay, we'll just wait for the information." But I was thinking, "Oh, 6 more months. All right. What the hell? I waited 36 years, right?" So, six.
Right.
So one day I went to go check my mail. I opened up my mailbox and there was this letter. It says, "County of Santa Clara." I'm looking at it and go, "Oh, did I get a ticket or this jury? Is this jury duty, right?"
Jury
I go,
duty.
"Oh shoot, I got jury duty, right?" And so I used to commute back and forth to work, and open it up. It was my non-identity information, and what it said was, "Your mother was 5'1", 89 pounds. She had two children at the time of your birth. She was living with your grandparents, and she lived at she worked at a doctor's office." Okay, that's what they said about her, and it was only like a brief affair with her and my biological father. So my biological father's side on the piece of paper said he was 5'7", medium build, brown hair, brown eyes, uh, and then he quit high school in 10th grade to go work full time. So that's all the paper gives you. So so I got that information and I went back to work. I don't know, a week later, or whatever. And there was a gentleman. His name was Carlos Bryan. Remember that name, Carlos Bryan. So I'm delivering concrete to his job site, right? I've known him for like 20 years already, to his construction company. He goes, "Hey Jim, how's it going?" He goes, "Oh, going good, Carlos." And he goes, "Hey, what you been up to?" I said, "Wow, you want me to tell you the truth, Carlos?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I'm looking for my biological family." He looks at me. He goes, "What?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "You mean Joe is not your dad?" He goes, "No, I was adopted." See, he knew my dad because my dad retired from the same company I did. We worked together for 7 years before my dad
Okay.
retired from the company. So he knew my dad. He goes, "No, that's not my biological father. That's my dad who raised me and adopted me." Oh wow! So I'm telling him the information I had about my biological mother, but he didn't know I had the information about my biological father. So he's telling me, I'm telling him the information. He looks at me and he starts shaking his head. He goes, "Jim, what year were you born?" I go, 62 in January. He goes, "Wow." He goes, "That's a trip." I goes, "Why? What's wrong?" He goes, "I used to go out with this girl named Marie back in the early 60s here in San Jose. And uh, we had like a brief affair. And I heard that she got pregnant, but she never told anybody and she moved away. But I heard she gave up the baby for adoption." Oh, wow. So I'm looking at Carlos, and he kind of looks like me. Kind
Wow.
of. So he kind of looks like me, and he's 5'7", black hair, dark eyes, medium built, right? So that's when I told him what it said about the father. And he just looks at me, and goes, "Whoa!" I go, "Yeah, I know." And I knew all of his family. I knew his nephews because I played softball with all of his nephews, right? And they were all in construction too. They're all concrete masons. And so I talked to him, and he goes, "Wow." So I told him the information about the father. He just looks at me and goes, "Oh, yeah." He goes, "You think we're father and son?" He looks at me and goes, "Gee, we might be." So back in those days, right, we didn't have a cell phone, right?
Right, right.
So I took off the job site and went to a phone booth. And I called. I called my wife. I go, "Hey, what else did they say in that piece of paper about my biological father?" So she mentioned everything, and then she mentioned him quitting high school in 10th grade, go to work full time. So I went back to the job site, and Carlos goes, "Hey, what are you doing back here?" "I got a question for you." He goes, "Yeah. Did you graduate high school?" He goes, "No, I didn't. I quit in 10th grade, work full time." He goes, "Oh shit." I go, "That's what the paper says, Carlos." And he goes, "Whoa." So uh, we're tripping out, and then of course, we exchanged our numbers and stuff like that. Of course, I was freaking out, and I was like, "Hey, I think I found my dad," and he's gonna try to find my mom. I said, "Okay." And so then, like 2 days later, I was going into the driver's room, and one of the other drivers, his name was Johnny, and he goes, "Hey Jim, I heard about you and Carlos." And I go, "How the hell do you know?" He goes, "Well, I used to live with Carlos's daughter, which is really your sister, for 5 years." And he told us the story. And your sister wants to meet you, or maybe your sister wants to meet you. Oh, okay. And she had a little boy, right? She was a single parent, and okay. So they came to my house in Los Baños, and they stayed for the weekend. I get to know them a little bit. Took them to the fair because it was like a May Day fair. There was a fair all week. Took them to
Uh-huh.
the fair. Got to know them, and me and Carlos were talking about you know uh, um, family events and all that when we can get together and all that. So we decided, maybe we better go take a blood test. So we went and took the blood test, and still we're talking, almost every day, and shoot, 7 weeks later, it came back. He was negative. He wasn't my father.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's probably was one of the worst days of my life because I had to call him and tell him it was negative, that we weren't father and son, and we were both emotional on the phone, right? And I don't even remember the day. That day I went to work with my buddy, my commute partner. I don't even remember that day because I was in a fog, and course, my wife was says, "Don't give up. We'll keep on looking. It's all right." So all of a sudden, I don't know, maybe about a month later, my wife was talking to our neighbor across the street. Her name was Connie. Her husband was Dominic, and they were talking, talking about their husbands, whatever. So I was playing softball with on Dominic's softball team when I was living in Los Banos too. So I knew him, you know, and she started telling Tina that Dominic was adopted, and he found his biological parents, but they both had passed away already. And then Connie has told Tina, what Tina told um, Connie, Jim's adopted, but this is the story. What happened with him? Oh shoot! Tell him to go talk to Dominic. He could join that group that he was in, and they help you find your biological parents. Oh shoot! So it's called Adoptees Discovery Network. And I told him, well, you found your parents in Merced, but I was born in Santa Clara County. He goes, well, they got a group in Santa Clara County. So I went to a meeting and I walked in there with about six other adoptees and their family members, whatever they were, and we gave them all the information. This guy, I always call him my angel. His name was Neil Kiley. He didn't charge us, did nothing. We met at this conference room at Kaiser in Santa Clara, Kaiser Hospital. And we said, go there and give them the information. The meeting was maybe 3 hours. He says, okay, Jim, well, uh, I'll have some information for you in a couple of weeks. Okay, whatever. Who is this? He's an older guy, right? He's like 70
Yeah.
something. And it's, okay, whatever. Then he calls me up. He calls me up and he tells me, Jim, I've got three names for you. You do? Because, yeah, there's ladies in Long Beach, one in LA, and one in San Jose. Here's the three names and their addresses. How did you get that? But I didn't ask. And I just, whatever, right? So I had those addresses in my pocket. So here's the concrete story. So I'm delivering concrete downtown in San Jose, and the street of that lady in San Jose, I had it in my pocket, right? So I'm driving by the street, and I look to the right. There's the address. And I said, "Well, shoot, you're not supposed to do this." But I said, "Oh, hell with it, man." I goes, "Life is too short." So I pulled over. I knocked on the door, and a gentleman answered the door, and he goes, "Hi, can I help you?" He goes, "Yeah. Did you order any concrete?" He goes, he goes, "No." So, oh, okay. Well, I'm lost. I'm just trying to find the house. All right. So I took off. But I went to the door. I had to. I had to go. I had to get something. And so about 2 weeks after that, Neil Kiley calls me up on the phone. "Yo, Jim, I found your mother." "You did?" "He goes, which one is it?" He goes, "It's the one in San Jose. The house I stayed. I stopped at to knock on the
Stopped
door."
it.
And he goes, and I told him the story. He goes, "Jim, you're not supposed to do that." But yeah, I know, but I did it anyway. He goes, "Okay, well, here's the number to your biological mother. Give her a call." So I already knew she had two kids and two boys and a girl. I knew that already. So I called her that night, about 9:30 at night. I still remember it was about 9:28, 9:29. I called her. I said, "Hey," is she answered the phone? Her name was Noberta. Noberta uh, Dominguez Montoya, or Montoya Dominguez. And so I called her and I goes, "Hey, is Bobby there?" Bobby is the person that answered that door that day when I stopped. That was my brother, my half brother, my half brother. He goes, "Hey, has no?" She goes, "How about Paul?" Paul is my other brother, half brother, with the husband that she's married to at that time. He goes, "No." I goes, "Who's this?" I go, "This is Jim Serrano." And she goes, "Okay. Well, I don't recognize your name." And he goes, "I know all my son's friends' names. I don't recognize your name." I go, "Well, I got a question for you." She goes, "Yeah, go ahead." I go, "Well, does January 22nd, 1962 mean anything to you?" And there was just dead silence on the phone. So I repeated myself again. And first words out of her mouth was, "Who is this? Why are you doing this to me?" It goes, "I'm not trying to do anything to you. I'm trying to get some medical information. I have a daughter, 16-year-old daughter, and this is who you think it is." And she goes, okay. There was dead silence. She goes, I can't really talk right now. All right. Can I call you tomorrow? Oh, sure. You can call me tomorrow. So I was in Gilroy, so I drove home to Los Banos, and actually, I had relatives drive me home because I couldn't because I was a mess.
Mhm.
So that night, we were in bed talking about the situation, and the phone rang. It was Norberta. She goes, Jim, can you meet me and instead of calling, can you meet me at Valley Medical in San Jose tomorrow around 10 o'clock? She goes, oh, yeah, yeah, I'll meet you there. Just meet me in the parking lot. She kind of described what she looked like and what car she was driving. And she was going to have four little kids with her. So, okay. So I get to the parking lot, and uh, like I tell everybody, this story is not like a Hallmark movie. It's not like, oh, my mom, oh, and cry and all that stuff. That didn't happen because I had a really cold heart, so I had a lot of resentment because what happened to me, and I was trying to say it was your fault. That everything that happened, it was your fault. And so I met her in the parking lot. She had those four little kids. She just gave me a hug and she cried in my arms for a little bit. And I didn't have no emotion. I just some old lady hugging me in the parking lot. So she asked me, "Can you come with me to my kids' appointments? They had doctor appointments." Well, sure. So we went in there and went to the appointment. She came back out of the appointments. We were getting ready to leave. We chit chatted a little, small talk. Then she goes, "Jim, I have something to tell you." I goes, "Yeah." I goes, "I have to go home and tell my husband and your siblings that you exist. I've never told anybody that I gave up a kid for adoption, you know, 37 years ago." So she had to go home and tell her husband. She had to go tell my siblings that I existed. She goes, "I don't know what's going to happen, but I have to go tell them now." So, okay. So I'm right there. I'm thinking, okay, well, she's either going to call me or I'm never going to see her again. So, and this is how I have so much respect for Paul Dominguez Sr. That's her husband that she was married to at that time. Because she had two kids at the time when she had that brief.
Older, right?
Yeah, yeah. They were. I think Wanda's like 3 years older than me, and Bobby was 4 years older than me. Well, she had those two children when she had that brief affair with me and gave me up. So she had two kids already when she gave me up. So that's the part that gets to me all the time because so you had two kids, but you couldn't keep me, and so uh, yeah. So after that happened, she called me the next day, and she goes, "You know what, Jim?" I goes, "Paul, her husband, he says everything that happened to you isn't your fault. Come and meet your brothers." Because my sister was living in Montana with her husband, so it was only my two brothers who were still there at the house. It's not your fault what happened to you. Come meet your brothers. So I went to go meet my brothers the next day, and we'll chit chat. You know, it was uncomfortable because you don't know
Mhm.
strangers. And I've seen all those little kids in the house still, and okay, your grandchildren. Got home that night, and she called me and she goes how I was feeling for meeting them for the first time. And then this is another kick in the gut. The first kick was I think I found my father, and now this is another kick. So I asked her, get some water.
It's okay. I want to when as you do that, I want to just say like so you were 37 years old when you found out you were adopted or when you found out your mother. But how old were you when you actually found out you were adopted?
I figured it out by myself when I was about 11 years old. No
And
one
when
ever
did
said.
you okay,
No
11
one
years
ever
old
told
and
me.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
nobody
when I
told
started
you.
drinking. No, nobody
Yeah,
told me.
that's it was between you know, you had the abuse that happened to you and then
Yeah,
you know, figured out you weren't, you know, by yourself that you were
yeah.
not adopted. Or I mean that you were adopted. When did you first go talk to your parents about it? Your parents that had adopted you? Because when you asked for their papers, you it was quite some time. Did you ever tell them, "Hey, I think I'm adopted," or "I know I'm adopted"?
No, we never talked about it. They never talked about it. No one
Gotcha.
ever talked about it. Back then, it's so much different. Nobody talks about nothing. So I asked my biological mother, Noberta, I goes, who are all those little kids at the house? That maybe it was her grandchildren or whatever, right? So this is the kick in the butt. Those were her foster kids.
Oh, wow.
Her and her husband had 500 kids come through their home through foster care. See, I was in foster care for 6 months.
Yeah, when you were born, you
Yes.
were placed into you were
Yeah.
given up for adoption, so then that 6 month span, you were in a foster
Mm.
care during that whole time until you were adopted.
Yeah. I have no clue where I was. All I see is in my adoption papers from Santa Clara County Welfare Department. There was a name says Freddie on the piece of paper, and I had to go to the judge to find out who Freddie was and what actually year I was born because Social Security had it different. So he opened up my records because I already found my family. So that's why he said he opened them up. Just he was having a good day that day, I guess. And he told me, okay, that's your year you were born. And Freddie is the name of the person that was taking care of you in foster care. They couldn't just name you Baby Doe for 6 months. They had to give you a name. So they gave me Freddie. So so that's what she told me that she was a foster care and she was a foster parent and she's been doing it for like 20 years. And people always says you think she was paying uh, God back for doing what she did? I go, I have no idea. She never really talked about it with me about that, but she knew that it hurt me really bad. That you know you took care of all those kids, you took care of my brother and sisters, but you kicked me to the curb, and that's something you always have to deal with the rest of your life, right? So, so after that happened, like I said, my parents never asked me about it or nothing like that. They never didn't want to know about it. So after, so I asked her, "Who's my father? Is Carlos Bryan my father?" I thought maybe the blood test was wrong. She goes, "Oh no, 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 that's not your father. Your father is Raw Coca. Raw Coca. Where can I find him?" She goes, "I don't know. I haven't seen him in 38 years." He goes, "Okay, but I know where your uncle's furniture store is. It was in San Jose for over 30 years on Santa Clara and Third Street. It was called Hank Coca's Downtown Furniture. Because you could go there and talk to your uncle. Maybe he knows where his brother's at." So there I am, right across the street. There was a job site. I finished unloading my load. I walked in. I asked the person that helped me. He goes, "Hey, is Hank Coca here?" He goes, "No, I'm Hank Coca Jr." He goes, "Who are you?" He goes, "Well, I'm just going to come out and tell you. Do you know a Raw Coca?" He goes, "Yeah, that's my uncle." "Okay, well, I think I'm his son." He looks at me and goes, "What?" "Yeah, I think I'm his son." He goes, "Okay." He's all, "I don't understand this." He goes, "Yeah, me either." So all I can say is, here's my phone number. Here's my biological mother's name. Give this to him and tell him to give me a call if he wants to get in contact with me. So I walked out of the furniture store. So my biological mother would threw me a little barbecue like 2 weeks after that to introduce me to some of the family, and still didn't get no call from my biological father. So on the way home, we got home. The wife went into the store. I mean, to the house, and she came out. She goes, "Jim, you got to come listen to the voice machine. Hurry, hurry." Okay.
Mhm.
So I put the machine on, right, and it says, "Hi, I'm Raw Coca. I think I might be your father. Let's meet." So I met him at a restaurant at Original Joe's in San Jose. So here he comes walking, and I go, "Whoa, yeah, it kind of looks like me," but his build was a lot thinner than me. I'm kind of a husky guy with big shoulders and all that. But see, my father was a twin, and
Mm.
his twin looks like me
Oh, wow.
with the body type and all that, right? So we talked. Uh, he remembered Norberta, and I told him the story and what happened to me, and so he said, "Okay, let's do a blood test." We did the blood test, and that was my father. So after that, the relationship didn't really grow too much because he didn't really know how to react to me because he never had any children and he
Mhm.
never was married. He was a bachelor all his life. And all of a sudden, you got a 37-year-old son, right? So he didn't really know how to act. towards me, and I understood that, and I was always looking for that father that could pat me on the back, you know, and but that didn't really work out. And so after that happened, and years passed, and then my mom developed breast cancer, and that guilt was killing me inside because how can you do this to your mom when she wasn't comfortable with you trying to replace her, which she was thinking probably, and so that was eating me inside. And then I found out my biological mother wanted to throw me a surprise 38th birthday party in Gilroy. She closed this restaurant, invited 150, 200 people, and it was supposed to be a surprise, but I found out about it 2 weeks before. And told my wife, I guess, are my parents going? And my family? She goes, yeah, they're going to be there. I goes, oh my God, jeez, I know they're not. Oh man. So I walked in the door, and there's my mom and dad that raised me sitting with my biological mother and her husband and my brother. And I'm thinking, oh my God, why did they sit them together? I could see the hurt in my mom's face. You could see the anger in my dad's face. And she was all happy, and but in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna get drunk tonight because I had to escape from reality. And all my friends were buying me shots and all that. But I remember that one thing about that night. Yeah, it was my birthday. I got drunk like I usually did. But my dad, leaving the party, he was going, okay, Jim, we're going to talk about this tomorrow. He was pissed off. I don't know what he was pissed off about. So the next day, we were in my home, and I was in the bed and watching something on TV, and I was thinking about my dad all morning, and then afternoon, and then all of a sudden I felt my chest. I felt like my heart was going to come out of my chest. It was beating really, really hard, and I collapsed. So I yelled, told Tina, I goes, call an ambulance. There's something happened to me. She's okay. So the ambulance came, got me, and they thought I had a massive heart attack. Went into the ICU, and um, stayed there for about 2, 3. I think it was. I can't remember. It was 2 or 3 days, and I was in there. But one of the parts that I'm going to tell you about is my biological mother came into the room like the day after because they wanted to keep everybody away from me. So she came out the day after. She came in the room, and 5 minutes later, here comes my parents that raised me. So they were in the room looking at me, not saying a word to each other. And that's right there. I'm saying, oh my God, these people just don't get it. And right there was probably one of the times that I asked the Lord, take me now, or if I would have had a gun, I'll just blew myself away right there in front of both of all of them, just to show them. See, that's the second time of my suicidal thoughts because when I was a teenager, I had plans of how I was going to kill my abuser and kill myself. So that's happened twice in my life. And that was one of the times in that hospital room. So they released me, and the doctor says, okay, well, the tests are fine, but we heard about your story. We need you to go see a therapist. Okay. So I went to a therapist and told him my story. And of course, right away, he prescribed me antidepressants, Paxil. So I was home for about, I don't know, 2 months, 3 months. I can't remember. But I was rolled up like a little baby, curled up like a little baby in my bed. I couldn't deal with life. And got there, and was on there for about 3 or 4 months of Paxil, and went back to work finally. But I was still on medication. And a buddy of mine there, he goes, "Hey Jim, how you doing?" He goes, "Good." I was telling him the story what happened to me because he was wondering where I was. So he invited me to his church, and I said, "Okay, well, I'll come check it out." But I didn't want to go check it out. I just whatever. But I ended up going on a Friday night, like an hour, not even an hour, half hour late. But he still was waiting for me. So I went and seeing all these people. It was a very charismatic church, right? So seeing all the people going, "Oh, hallelujah," and jumping around, and it's okay. I'm not used to that because I was raised in Catholic church, right? They don't do that stuff there. You're
Yeah.
very calm and traditional. Grandma's traditional church, right? So I did all that, and that kind of relaxed me, kept me in peace a little bit. Listening to the music. I did that for about 3 months, but I was still on Paxil. So one day we were at a service and I started feeling anxiety coming. So I had my pills with me, so I went and took some. But by the time I went back to my chair, I felt a little different. This is okay. But I got home that day and I got my medic. I don't know why I did it, but I did it. I got all my medication and threw it down the drain. And 2 days later, I see my therapist. He goes, "Hey Jim, how you doing?" He goes, "Good." He goes, "So you taking your medication?" He goes, "No, I threw it all away and down the drain." Jim, you can't do that. I did it anyway. I don't need you anymore. So I walked out of the room just like that. Of course, he was freaking out that I did that. And I said, "Now this is a trip." Remember that program 2020?
Mhm. Yeah.
So that Friday night we were watching it, and that whole special for that whole hour was on antidepressants, and they were talking about Paxil, the one I was on, how people were getting off of it so fast and committing suicide.
Mm.
So that was a trip right there, right? So and that's one thing on this Thursday. It's Adoptee Remembrance Day, and as adoptees, we're 4 times likely more to take our lives than normal people because the abandonment issues and other issues that we go through in our heads and our souls, of trying to figure out who we are. And so that happens. That's going to happen this Thursday. And so I got off the medication. I just and oh my that 38th birthday party. That's the last time I had a beer in my hand. Never touched a beer after that. I think it probably gave me a good wake up call. You know that I don't need that anymore to escape from reality. People ask me all the time, "Do you get tempted now, Jim?" Hell yeah, I get tempted. When I go work out at a gym. I've been doing Muay Thai martial arts for like about
Mhm.
8 years now, and I always have to drive by all the breweries when I'm going to the gym. Oh man, I see my buddies or I see people I know. It tempts me. Even after 26 years, it still tempts me. But I haven't, and I have to keep on going for my daughter because there's nothing better than when your daughter tells you how proud she is of you. That's what keeps me
Mhm.
going. That's our only one. We only have one child, and so after the relationship with my biological mother, it was a roller coaster. Our relationship was a roller coaster because we argued a lot about how she fostered kids and how I think the kids should be raised. And so we used to talk for 6 months, not talk for 6 months, talk for 6 months, and then the last 6 months of her life, she didn't even talk to me
Mm.
because something that we happened between me and her, and she called me on my 60th birthday. She texted me, "Happy birthday." We're at Disneyland. She told me about her health problems, and then after that, she passed away. And that happened 4 years ago. Yeah, about 4 years ago now. And my biological father passed away about probably 10 years ago from Parkinson's disease, but we never really had a relationship. I say in the 10 years I knew him, we probably went out like 3, 4 times maybe for dinner. That was about it, really. But the family is really loving. Both families are loving, but uh, families don't really know how to react towards me. I've lost family members for telling my story because they say I'm being ungrateful or they can't understand because they're not in my and I understand that they don't understand. So I don't try to get so much anger towards them. I mean, like I said, I mentioned it. I had a cousin contact me last week telling me that my heart was in a different, wrong place. That you should be grateful. You should be happy that you found your family. But they don't understand what I went through. You didn't live my life. I'm telling
Mhm.
you my truth, not your truth. Everybody wants everyone's truth. Well, you lived your life, I lived mine. You have no right to tell me where my heart is, because I know where my heart is. It's a heart of healing, and by me telling my story, I've talked to many other men that talked about suicide through molestation or other things that happened in their life, and they thank me that I'm transparent with it. And they always ask me, "How did you do it, Jim?" I goes, "You know what? I don't know how I did it, but I did it. I did it. And you know what? Um, People always ask me, what is the hardest cry you've ever had, Jim? And I always tell them, the hardest cry I've ever had was at my mom's gravesite that raised me. I had to take off my flower off of my suit, put it on top of the casket. And all those years of me, I'm thinking about my mom's love and how she used to tell my dad, that's enough, Jose. He's had enough. He used to hit
Mhm.
me. But the person that abused me, sexually abused me, was there at the gravesite at the same time. So I was dealing with that and that at the same time. And it's funny. People used to ask me all the time, is he still around? Well, here's a shocker right here. So I got a Facebook request probably about a month ago. And I kind of recognized the name, but I didn't recognize the name. Then I went to the picture of the profile and I go, is that? Yeah, that is her. I haven't seen her in 25 years. She's the grandchild of the person that molested me. So I clicked it. I didn't accept her friend request, but I clicked it. See if she had pictures. He's still alive.
Mm.
See the picture of him. He's still alive. But the anger wasn't there no more. The anger wasn't for me. I'm gonna go take care of him. He's still alive. No. My biological mother used to tell me all the time, "Why don't you go after him? Why?" But then I'm thinking, I can't live with that guilt the rest of my life because I used to live with, what if you did it to other people, other kids? But I didn't say nothing. But I can't live with that. I can't live with that shame. I can't live with guilt. I have to heal from this. And that's why I tell my story and I do these podcasts because it is a healing for me. 5 years ago, when I first started telling my story, I used to break down. It take me 2 hours to tell my story because I get so emotional and start crying like a baby. But now look at I can still tell you, and I haven't broke down. But
Yeah.
it's because I'm healing now, and I just had to keep on going. People always tell me, "Why do you tell your story so much, Jim?" Because doesn't it bring back the past? Yeah, it brings back the past, but I'm winning that victory of my past by telling my story. I'm healing now. You can't understand. I got tattoos all over my arms, my legs. From everyone talks about my life. One of it's from my favorite movie from Antoine Fisher. Antoine Fisher is a true story about 20 years ago that Denzel Washington made. He was a psychiatrist to a gentleman that had a lot of anger in his life. He was raised in foster care. He was sexually molested, and he went looking for his biological family. And it's called Antoine Fisher. And the one good line in there that I live by in the movie, it says he went back to his foster mother that raised him and molested him to try to find any information when he went looking for his family. And he told her, "I'm still standing. I'm still strong." So that's me. I'm still standing. I'm still strong. That's why I have it tattooed on my leg. My other one
Mhm.
says, "Let your mess be your message." I have to.
Exactly.
I have to keep on telling my story. And when I get an opportunity to tell my story, I'm never going to turn it out to anybody. Even people hear my story and they thank me, but they thank me because they're ashamed. It's not okay. You know, I know what the shame feels like, but you have me. I could talk to you. I can listen. There's no judgment. I know what you feel. So, like I said, I've joined. I never 10 years ago I knew one adoptee. Now I know hundreds because I've gone to different conferences. I spoke at conferences to tell my story. And like I said, I seen a therapist in February at a conference, and she convinced me to start writing my book. And that's what I started doing right now. So, but that's my story. If you got any questions?
Well, that was a long story, and I
Yeah, I know.
appreciate you telling your story. And the reason I say that it's okay that it was long because it goes. I mean, you have had you said you're 64 now or about to be. That's a
Good,
long
good.
time to go through that. You've been through a lot through. I mean, from the time your first 6 months, you were. you were in a foster care, and then get adopted to this family, and though you're thankful that they, know that you love your mom that raised you,
Yes.
um, and all the things, it's just that feeling like, the identity, where am I? Who am I? Where do I belong? And that the whole thing is all go back to our needs. As a child, we have needs. We want to feel loved. We want to feel wanted. And you had to struggle through that. And I just want to say, for you and your wife today, being, young, married young, and having that life that you guys went through, I'm sure that it was not always easy. So, but the fact is that you found, raising Catholic, I can relate to that. But then finding a church that you can feel like you belong, and it took you a little bit of time.
Mm.
But the thing is, you didn't give up on yourself. And like you said, your mess is your message. Um, when we go and have this pain that we go through, and this is one of the reasons I started my podcast, is because we've all been through stuff, and
Yes.
having people share their stories to see how they refined and shine to come out on the other side. And it's refining, right? We're constantly healing. We're constantly, and as we go through these things in life, more things come up. Um, I just was reading earlier today a Bible verse, and it was talking about like our strength, like our prayers, we need to pray through the gratitude, and we need to pray through like the tragedy. We have everything, no matter what we go through, we have to keep sharing and showing, and go to God and tell him what we feel, and what we need. And also we can share with others to help others understand that it's okay. I know, in fact, I know, and it's a lot through this podcast I've heard, other men share their stories of, trauma that they've been through. And I think that it's something that needs to be heard, because a lot of people feel that shame and that guilt, and I let this happen to me, or why did this happen to me, or all of these things. I just want to say congratulations on your sobriety. I know that
Thank
that's
you.
something. Would you say 26 years? It's a long time. And I thank you for that, because I have loved ones who have been through, self-medicated, the numbing of the alcohol, because they didn't know how to deal with what they had what to deal with, because of what we talked about before we started recording, is that especially in the Hispanic culture, right? You gotta man up, you gotta be strong, all of the things, you don't talk about things, you don't ask questions. Um, it's all of those things, like we just, keep everything, we sweep it under the rug, right? And you are sharing that, it's I'm done. I'm done with that. I want people to know my story, and it's so that they understand, and it could be you can impact one person, right? One person you can make that impact to, and they can hear your story, and you never know where they're at. Maybe they just need to hear that to say that they're going to be okay too, that they're going to still be standing, right?
Exactly. There's a movie scene in Creed. Uh, I think it's Creed 2. Yeah, Creed 2. And I kind I look at it and I look at the scene and I think, am I still trying to prove something? Because there's a scene in the movie where in between rounds, Rocky is telling Creed's son, "Okay, I'm going to end this fight. I'm going to stop it," because he was getting beat up, right? And he yells at Rocky and he tells him, "Don't stop it! Don't stop it! I gotta prove it." And Rocky tells him, "Prove what?" "I gotta prove I'm not a mistake." And I think that's why I keep on telling my story. That's why I've been in martial arts for 8 years now. That's why I'm at 64 years old. I spar with kids. I'm still keeping up with kids. Am I still trying to prove it that I'm not a mistake? Am I still trying to prove to my dad that's been gone for 10 years that I'm not a mistake? How can't you be proud of a son that retired at the same company you retired from? And I was there longer than he was. We're the only father and son to retire at that company. And this funny thing about it is my dad had dementia for the last 10 years of his life. So me and my wife took care of him for 6 years. And for a father that didn't show me any love, I was taking care of him the first 6 years of his dementia. And there was a lot of stuff that I had to do that never would have happened because he was a very prideful man, right? And I won't go into what happened, but um, things. I think it's a way of showing us we have to forgive.
Mhm.
And me, I still have issues. I still, in my mind, I think about why did this happen? Uh, Why couldn't it worked out any different? But I can't keep on saying why instead of saying why not you, Jim? Who are you? Because everybody has a story. Everyone has a story. It's just that some people can't figure out how to deal with it, and one day at a time.
I think that that's so, I think it's beautiful in a way. I mean, here you are, wanting to please your father this whole time, your adopted father this whole time. And you felt like you grew up with that your whole life. You felt like you wanted to prove something. Here we are. I do the same job that he's doing. We retired. I worked longer than he did. And then in the last 6 years of his life, you're here taking care of him. But Jim, back to everything. When you talk
Mhm,
about pleasing the father, you're pleasing your father,
mhm.
our God, our
Yeah.
godly father. You're pleasing him, and he is. And I think that that's so important. I think that's why the message that your friend take inviting you to church, and you not wanting to go, but you go anyway. And um, I go to a Christian church, and I know, like, when you're talking about Catholic, we sing the same
Mhm.
songs, we go through the same thing, but it's a different little feeling. And I'm not putting down Catholic religion at all. I'm not
No,
saying
no,
anything
no,
like that.
no,
But
no.
there's when we're having so much pain, and in fact, some of the darkest moments of my life is when I went to a Christian church because I needed that worship music. I needed
Yes,
somebody who could relate to some. I mean, I
yes.
needed a pastor who was married, who
Mhm,
knew the trials and tribulations that we go through, and a
mhm.
marriage. Those are the things I needed, and that is why. And I'll still sing my grandma who was who's passed 5 years ago. One of
Mhm.
my favorite pastimes with her was going and singing some of those Catholic hymns. Here I
Yeah,
am, Lord, be not
yeah,
afraid. Those ones, but there's
yes,
nothing like, but and so I'll still sing those, but it's just that other thing that we need, and there's ways you can have everything in life. The thing
exactly.
also that I love is that you're still sharing the thing is that our pain that we have been through, we always don't understand it. Like, why, God? Why did this happen to me? But even if our pain is for a purpose so that we can help others. You never know. Like, my podcast is somebody can listen to any of the
Yes.
podcasts that you've done. They can hear your speech. They can pick up your book and they can read it. I can just imagine, and then you're just changing somebody's life and leaving that legacy that we don't have to be in. We don't have to have the shame. We don't have to sweep everything underneath the carpet, put everything
Yes.
at the rug, under the rug. And so I think
Mhm.
that that's so important. But I loved all that you shared, and, how can people who would love to hear you, get in contact with you, stay connected with you? What links would you love to share with them?
Well, you could go on my social media. You could go. I'm on IG. Just put Jim Serrano or Facebook Jim Serrano. Send me a friend request, and if you need to talk, or there's always videos there of my adoptee journey or something that I share about adoptees or something like that, or anything else. I
Mhm.
mean, you have to deal with. Even I put stuff on there on sexual abuse, and people will probably go, "Whoa, shoot! I thought Jim was a tough guy." Well, I am a tough guy. Yeah, I'm a
Mhm.
tough guy. I've been through all this shit, and I'm still standing.
Yeah.
So but yeah, just Jim Serrano on IG or Facebook, and reach out
Mhm.
to me that way. And then you need to talk. Good old saying. He gave us 2 ears, one mouth, do more listening, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we
I
have to
love
learn to shut up our mouth, shut our mouth. You know.
Well, I love that, and I'll definitely have your links in the show notes. But one of the things I always love to, as we wrap up, I always love to ask my guests are what is something, a word, a phrase, any type of action, something that my listeners can do if they're going through any pain, or so they need to learn how to refine or shine and start that healing to refine and shine. What would one thing that you could give them to take action on today?
Talk.
Talk.
Don't hold it inside. Don't hold this like I did for 52 years. That's a long time to hold all this pain and shame inside your gut, and try to drown it with alcohol or other things that you shouldn't be doing. And just find somebody you could trust to talk or just talk. Uh, Journaling has helped me. Writing has helped me. Um, I I I work and only live like 30 minutes from the beach. So I'm always at the beach. I'm always at the beach, and that brings me peace. Because sometimes I'll go out there and just talk, or sometimes I'll go out there and scream. Hopefully, no one's around. You know what I'm doing it, but
Mhm.
but and don't let your pride get in the way. I did for many years, and I had a lot of anger. I thought uh, proving my manhood by um, physical violence or drinking was going to make me more of a man and make me forget about what happened to me as a child. You know, because you want to prove your manhood because he was a
Mhm.
man, and that's what you try to do all my life, and it has nothing to do with that. It was just me not speaking about it. And like I said, telling your daughter and your wife at 52 years old in the car when you're going to get an ice cream what happened to you as a kid, and seeing your wife cry on the couch, and you're looking at her and go, "Why are you crying?" She goes, "Because I'm reading this thing for school that we have to talk to the kids about sexual abuse, and I'm thinking about you as a kid." So it trickles down to your family. When I seen that one day, I was a it tore me up because I said, "Why? I can don't make it go down to my family. This hurt." And it did, and it did. You know, it did.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it, Jim. I appreciate it. So thank you so much for being my guest today.
thank you.